the great town of North Stonington. I'm going to call our meeting to order. And present tonight is myself, of course, Dan Smith, Mike Anderson, Sarah Nelson, Brett Mastriani, and Carl Johnston. The time is, I'll call it 7:03. Before we start on the agenda, being one day post-elections, as chair of the Board of Finance outgoing, I certainly would like to congratulate all the incoming candidates that won their seats, whether it should be on the Board of Finance or otherwise. And for those who did not win a seat in any, I applaud you for stepping forward and saying, I want to be a part of. It makes a big difference in moving our town forward. So it's well appreciated. And we'll move forward now with the agenda. Do we have any public comments at this point? Sean, you're recognized.
Hello, Sean Murphy. Having learned that this is the last year that Sandy Wellwood and her team are going to be conducting our audit, I thought I'd take this opportunity to thank Sandy on behalf of Nick Mullane, Robin Rohr, and myself. We really appreciate your services over the last many years that you've served the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Any other public comments? Any on the line? Okay, hearing none. Agenda item number 3, correspondence. I have not had any official correspondence since our last meeting of October 25th. Agenda item number 4. I'm very pleased that our auditing services represented by Sandy Wellwood is with us tonight to present the draft audit of our fiscal year 2020-21 for the town of North Stonington. This is not new to Sandy, and certainly not new in terms of our relationship, which I hold in high regard. Sandy has served the town of North Stonington. I'm saying 10 years, Sandy, I could be wrong, but I think it's 10 years. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sandra Wellwood. You have the floor, Sandy.
Yeah. So,
okay. Now
sorry.
we can hear you.
Yes, I, as I was telling Dan, I try not to do video. You know, I've been ill with some allergies. So if you notice, I have very little hair, and it took me a minute to unmute because I have tremors. So we won't dwell on that, but it's been a challenge, and that is one of the main reasons we're dropping out. We're going to miss you all. We've enjoyed working with you all these years, and I just felt you deserve the best service, and I am beginning to feel that maybe we can't give you the service you deserve. We give it our all, you know, but I just, it's hard to find good help these days, if at all. So we're in the same boat as everybody else is in the pandemic. You know, a lot of open positions out there. So with that, and Sean, I thank you for your kind words. As I said, we've had a long run there. I think a very productive one, and hopefully, you know, it will continue. As far as our audit this year, you know, every year we've had, we've seen improvements as far as timeliness, understanding, team effort, and this was no exception. the improvements. Sometimes they're baby steps, but you're always moving in the right direction. And that's always a positive. The audit went smoothly, always a few bumps, nothing, different than any other year. And just both the Board of Ed and town really responded well, which if you notice, we really were able to buckle down and keep moving on your audit pretty quickly because of the responsiveness, in order to have it draft done and ready for this early November meeting. If you remember, a lot of times it was December. So that's a plus, and that's a team effort that is appreciated by us, and just makes things go a lot better. Before I go into you, as far as, I really don't have a lot to say, but because it was, in spite of COVID, was a pretty status quo audit. You're finishing your major project of the school, et cetera, et cetera. But the one thing, actually two items, effective July 1, 2021, the new lease accounting is going to go into effect. So for your coming audit 2022, there's going to be a lot of changes there. Unfortunately, it doesn't impact you guys personally, because it has no impact on your budgets at all. It's at that higher government-wide level that we've talked about in the past. But it is going to be a lot of work. Susan at the town has been keeping a pretty darn good list of leases. This is all leases, from the postage receipt machine to any major capital leases that you have. And then your new auditors will have to walk you through what changes and what information you're going to need. So I wanted to give you a heads up on that. What you might want to do to prepare is, both on the school side as well as the town side, make sure you've got your, as my mother used to say, your ducks in a row. You have a good detailed listing, listing meaning your terms, your time period, expiration, what kind of lease it is, and that will help the auditors guide you through the new accounting. Like I said, it has zero impact on your budget. It's all government-wide financial presentation, financial statement stuff. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we have a whole bunch of new audit rules that will be effective for your June 30, 2022 audit. Again, your auditors should sit down with you and go through those with you. Most of it is presentation. It will change the audit opinion drastically. Your engagement letter will be changed drastically. Your representation letter that you don't sign, but Christine and Susan sign, that will change. Lot of changes. How much it will adjust your the audit work remains to be seen. Based on what I've learned from how we do our audit procedures, it doesn't change the procedures per se. What it does is it changes how we document them, which can be a little more time consuming. So I just wanted to give you those two heads up, so that you're not blindsided, next August or September. And then what I'd like to do is just kind of touch upon the most important part, which is your general fund. And from a final budgetary standpoint, you expected to use fund balance of a little over 700,000. You used 240,000. So in combination of revenue positives and expenditure positives, you were better than budget by 487,000. And we have found that that's been pretty much status quo. One of the reasons, oddly enough, is caused by the pandemic because of all of the additional building permits and conveyance taxes. We've seen that across the board with very little, if any, negative impact on your taxes, collection of your taxes. So, as a smaller town, in Connecticut, you haven't been really negatively impacted to the extent many of the cities have been by the pandemic. As far as the expenditures, you had major positives in all, you had positives in all line items pretty much. The major positive was public safety, and that was partly because you had no DUI grant expenditures. On the flip side, you had no DUI grant received either. The public works, significantly better, but your winter costs and your snow removal, again, we've been seeing this everywhere. You didn't have the harsh winter that you have. So you didn't have as much, labor overtime, sand, fuel, that kind of thing. So those were the kind of the highlights of your budget. So what does all of this mean? What it means is you've got an unassigned fund balance of 3.2 million, which is 15.5% of your current year expenditures. And, over the years, we've talked about unassigned fund balance, and I'm going from memory here, but I think the first year we did your audit, I think you had like 2% unassigned, something outrageously low. And so you've come a long way over the years. For your size town, I think it's decent. That's a personal opinion, not an audit opinion. I think anybody your size, because if it's a percentage of expenditures, I go back to I use North Stonington as a very good example when I talk at other Board of Finance meetings. When that bridge went out in the center of town, the cost of that bridge was, I think, like 2.8 million or something like that. That doesn't equate to a percentage of your expenditures. The cost of that bridge is going to be absolute. It's going to be the same whether you're Hartford, Bridgeport, or North Stonington. So I like it when I see towns determining what their percentage is, what's comfortable for them in their situation. Some of it's how much risk you are willing to take for catastrophes or, emergencies, that kind of thing. And the absolute, once you decide what the absolute is, then you can decide what a good percentage is. To say everybody should have a certain percentage across the board doesn't work for me for that prime reason. just because you're a smaller town, the bridge doesn't cost less. So, and this is a little bit lower than last year. You were 3,700,000 last year, and it was 18.3% of your expenditures last year. That doesn't mean that's good. Obviously you're going to have fluctuations from year to year. But also keep in mind, I think a lot of people forget that this unassigned does not include, let me get to the number. I have everything marked, but then it still doesn't work for me. Okay, you have in your budget for 2022, you have 193,999 use of fund balance that you're planning. The number I gave you already has that taken out. And I think that's important, especially for certain towns who sometimes use 400,000 or 500,000. So that unassigned is not earmarked in any way as of June 30, 2021, including not reflecting fund balance that's not been used yet, that's planned to be used. So I think that makes a big difference when you look at the number, knowing that's not in there. Trying to think of what else I wanted to say on that. I think that's about it. So far, is there any question on that?
We just had a question come up, Sandy. We're just waiting for a break. And before the question comes forward, I might just tell you, we do have an unassigned balance policy, where, again, as you mentioned, trying to optimize it for the town so that we feel sufficient relative to our reserves, but not overly so that taxpayers would say, "Gee, that's a big number." So,
Yeah.
the question comes from Mike Anderson, so that's who you'll hear from next.
Okay.
So Dan stole my thunder. I guess the question is, our policy says we don't want less than 8.5%, and after 17%, we need to either lower the mill rate or lower debt. Do you think that's a sound policy, given your experience, or like you said, is it just case by case with regard to towns?
It does go case by case. We generally do towns your size or a little bit smaller. And again, personal opinion, if I see it getting close to or over 20%, that's when I start kind of saying maybe you're hoarding a little bit. So I think you're right in the ballpark. I think for your size, anything below 8% is up to you. But along with that decision, if it's less than 8% would come, you're willing to take more risk to not have funds on hand. So, and that's a town by town decision. That's not an audit. If you were down to 2% again, if it's extremes, then it becomes an audit issue. But if it's not extremes, it really comes down to how you all feel and how your townspeople feel as far as risk. You have to assess your risk. That's what it comes down to. So I think that's fine. And I think having a wide range is not a bad thing either, because, you know, things happen during the year. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. So it gives you time to maneuver, adjust, and move to the next year.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Sandy, we don't have any other questions from the floor.
Okay,
I think from your perspective, Sandy, in that we have new members on the board coming on, and that you've been with us, I would say, I would call it some legacy over the last 10 years. Maybe you can just give a quick synopsis. I mean, you hit on it lightly, but just how the town has been able to execute their budgets and improve their fiscal standing over that 10-year period.
how you've been able to do it? Or, I'm
From
sorry,
yeah, from your professional opinion, seeing audit after audit after audit over a 10-year span.
I think it comes from every level, from the Board of Finance to Susan, Christine, Deb, tax collector. Everybody has tried to improve their processes. And like I said, it doesn't take a lot, but you're more consistent. I think we've laughed before about the C word I like to use. Consistency is very, very important in processes. It helps everybody understand what should be happening, what the process should be, what policies are driving it. And the ultimate, if you can implement those processes on a regular basis consistently, then you're going to have a winner. And I think, you know, you're not so small as you're a one-man shop like we have in a couple of spots, but it takes teamwork. What is that saying? It takes a village. And you've got that there. And there's still room for improvement, but I will never, ever tell you that there's not room for improvement. Because in my world, with the changes, technology, cybersecurity, you know, there's just, as the environment changes, so much your internal controls and your processes. So there will always be room for improvement. But I think you have done it. And again, it's from the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, Treasurer, all the way down, you know, the people who are doing the day-to-day work. Everybody worked together, whether they realized it or not, but they worked together to, every year we saw improvements. And also, you'll have to remember, it was in the midst of the building of the emergency center, building of the school, well, initially the bridge, getting the bridge built. So you've had a lot of activity, a lot of major projects, and in spite of that, you've been able to improve. So I believe that's a major, big applause for everybody.
Thank you, Sandy. We have a question from Bob. Oh, yeah, you're slightly behind me. Brett Mastriani.
After looking at the budget, I guess I'm glad that we budgeted for next year on our revenues for our permits based on the budget last year, not what we actually brought in, because it looks like you're predicting a sharp decline in permit revenues. Is that just what you're feeling from across the state? Or based on that we had such an increase this year that it's obviously probably not sustainable?
I think it's the latter. Like I said, we're seeing that everywhere, but well, especially with the supply chain issues and building costs so high now and getting worse, the number of building permits, in my opinion, has to go down. I do not believe. I think that was a one-time deal because of COVID.
All right, that makes sense. And then just another question. I know we talked about it at the last year at the budget review, and I always think about it because it's not in the audit. Is there a benefit, and we talked about Daryl potentially doing this, of having an asset list for the town of our land and buildings so we can track those as an asset?
You do track them.
But I don't.
They're
we
in
haven't-
the they're in the higher level. They're in the high level, government wide.
Okay, so we don't report these on here.
Yeah, you do. On page 27,
Yeah, it was on there.
that's your capital asset summary. And Susan Pike has the details behind that. She tracks those. And we audit that.
And that has the land on there as well.
Yes.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of, long-term debt, capital assets, pension and OPEB related items don't show up in the normal manner in your budget. They're at that government-wide full accrual basis.
Okay,
So
and do those usually go through, and this might be for Dan or Christine, do those, as we had our reassessment this year, do we reassess those assets?
No. No, you do not. It's not allowed. It's just historical cost. Or
Okay.
it's donated at fair value at the date of donation.
Okay, so we never reassess those. Is that a state thing? It doesn't allow us to do that?
No, that's an accounting requirement. Accounting rules.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Next, we have Bob Carlson, and Bob Carlson is the incoming for selectman.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Okay, you hear
Now
me
we
now.
got you.
So hi, Sandy, thank you for that. I have a question for you. You probably know the town has purchased new software to align ourselves with what the Board of Ed's been using for the last year. I know you recommended that software at your last audit meeting with us. A question, since we're going to be enacting that and having training on that, has been brought to our attention about a chart of accounts that the state has recommended that they've worked on in setting up the new software. And it's been said that if you're ever going to do it, you want to do it when you bring in a new software product like this. What's your recommendation? Should we stay with what we have now? Or do you think it's a perfect time to change it over to the chart of accounts that the state of Connecticut is recommending?
I would recommend a hybrid. The problem with the chart of accounts that the state is mandating for reporting to them is in certain areas not conducive to your operations or your departments. It's set up to be everything to everybody, meaning it was set up for Hartford or Stamford or Bridgeport. You don't have all those departments. So a lot of it's not applicable. And in some cases, you combine departments by necessity because you're smaller. So I think you should try to, well, you can either try to go with a hybrid like I'm suggesting, or go with whatever you want and then do a mapping tool to get it to their to their slots, for a lack of a better word. I've seen it done both ways, and a lot of that is a preference. I think once you get into working on the new chart of accounts, which will be different just because of the system is different. So you have different fields, more numbers, you know, to work with. So I think once you devise that chart of account, or start looking at devising the chart of accounts, you need to weigh pros and cons as you go to each section. For example, your general fund might not be that bad in certain areas, but some of it just won't apply. I mean, you just don't have the number of departments a large city has.
And is that what the central office did? They have a hybrid version of it there. Yeah, I'm sure they must have changed their chart somewhat when they bought the new computer, correct?
That's fairly correct. I reviewed all of the accounts and made the adjustments as necessary. And Sandy's absolutely correct. A lot of the accounts that are needed by a larger school district or a large municipality aren't needed by our smaller districts. So what I did was I created the chart of accounts based on our needs. So I didn't create chart of accounts if we were a larger district and had all those departments. I created our chart of accounts based on our departments and our needs and the school size and the different, as we talked about the other day, the different units as the state requires me to report.
Right. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. And Deb's reporting is very different than the town reporting is. So it gets a little more complicated, but same type of situation though.
No, thank you. And I appreciate Deb coming on. I sat with her yesterday, actually, and she got to show me how she did it. And it made sense to me the way she did it. And she also said that the town would be somewhat different than her setup. But I just wanted to clarify what your thoughts were on this opportunity we have and how much we should adhere to the state's version versus a hybrid version. So thank you, Sandy. I appreciate the feedback.
Well, you know, while we're on that subject, Infinite Visions, in my opinion, is one of the best municipal softwares out there. I've seen some, and you know, I'm not a spring chick. I've been around for 40 years, and some of them, even I can't understand their reports. And I've seen a lot of different systems, whereas Infinite Visions has a lot of different functionality that's going to help with the reconciliation between the town and the Board of Finance. It's going to streamline a lot of the work Susan has to do among all of the different funds. It's all going to be integrated. So, and the reports are good and decent. And I've seen different reports at different clients, because you can kind of adjust those reports to meet your needs. So it's the best of all worlds in a municipal situation. Municipal software just hasn't historically been very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandy. Any other questions? Sandy, hearing none, we'll pick it up from here, and we appreciate you joining us this evening, and certainly hope that you are feeling better as we move forward.
Yeah, I have good days and I have bad days. And luckily I'm having more good days, but I seem to be worse as the weather gets bad. So hopefully it is going to be what it's going to be. But thank you again so much, and I wish you all the best. And one last thing, I spend extra time. State and federal grants are very important to keep track of, et cetera, et cetera. And Susan, over the past 3 or 4 years, I've been training Susan to do the schedules required, because it's the auditee's responsibility, not the auditor's. And I spent additional time with her this year and gave her some additional pointers. So, and she knows if, when she's doing it next year, she's more than welcome to give me a call to walk her through, the final touches. So with that, the only thing I need from you is approval so we can get processing tomorrow.
We can do that. So I would like to present a motion that we approve the draft audit from Sandra Wellwood LLC for the fiscal year 2020-21 for the town of North Stonington as presented. And we have a second from Brett. Do we have any other discussion? If we can bring that to a vote, because we're kind of split here, either a yay or a hand would help. For yay? You can abstain? Yeah. And Sarah? Okay, so we have a 501. And that motion passes, and your draft audit is approved.
Okay.
So thank you, and we appreciate your years of service to the town.
Thank you. Yeah, we're gonna miss coming over there, and we haven't even been over there the last few years. That was my trip of the year, was to go to the other side of the state.
Well, if you should come this way, we will always have chocolate and a jar of peanut butter.
That sounds good. All right, thank you very, very much.
Sandy, again, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody, for that approval. It's an important one. And before we leave that, I say this for the benefit of those in the room, part of the administration of the town, new board members. And I've said this countless times before, that an audit, a clean audit, an audit that shows progress is one of the most critical documents we have in the town that represents the town, other than the plan of conservation and development. So getting good audits is paramount. The improvement that we had in our audits over the last 10 years gave us the ability to go to the debt market and take on funds that improved our public safety and our educational system here in the town, which then had a direct impact on what developed in terms of our reevaluation of residential property. We had a very nice spike. So it demonstrated good fiscal responsibility and investment in the town. And it's a big deal. So these documents are not to be taken lightly. And all the work that we do through the year feeds into this culmination, this document. So now we'll move on. The Board of Selectmen, you're going to make a presentation for an appropriation request from the Relief Act funds.
Okay, is this still working? Yes. Okay, so first Selectman Ergo asked me to make this. I don't know whether he had a conflict or thought I needed the practice, but either way, I'm here to make this ask. So what it is, I'll just read it to you because it's not very long. At the meeting of the Board of Selectmen on October 26, 2021, the following uses of American Rescue Funds were approved. The Board of Selectmen now requests the Board of Finance review these uses and vote to approve or reject these allocations. Online building, inland wetlands, planning and zoning permit software for $7,500. The Land Use Department is requesting $7,500 to fund 3 years of licensing. So it'd be $2,500 a year for 3 years. For software for the online permitting of building, inland wetlands, and planning and zoning permits. The COVID-19 pandemic showed the need for contactless services that allowed residents to process applications without needing to physically come into town hall. The total ARP fund request is $7,500. And again, it's a 3-year request at $2,500 per year. At the end of 3 years, we'll determine whether this makes sense to us. If it doesn't, we can always just get rid of it. If it does, we can absorb it into the land use office's budget. That's all I have. And if there's any questions, that'd be great.
Sure. Any questions from members of the board? Brett, then Mike.
So it's a question and comment. I'm concerned that it's coming in front of us right now. I actually reached out to Lou, who's the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission, to see if this was even discussed yet on their board, and it has not. So he requested that I bring that up tonight and let everyone here know that they would like to discuss this software in this process, because they are the ones that oversee it to a certain extent. And actually they, between planning and zoning and economic development, oversee Nate. So they were surprised, or Lou was very surprised that this request came forward without going through planning and zoning first, which is the normal process. So I think the software is nice, and I know I've talked to Juliet about it in the past, about building that portion into the software we have. But planning and zoning as of right now has not discussed it, and it changes the way that they operate. So I let Lou know that I would say that tonight. I don't know, Bob, if you have any more information on that, whether planning and zoning talked about it.
I don't, but
different members.
I see that Christine has.
So the implementation of this software is for internal processing within the land use department. It's not going to change the process for the boards and commissions and the way that they review. This is more for building permits and the payments that come in through the office.
All right, when you read this, it talks about online permitting. And like I said, in my view, it should go through planning and zoning, as they are the commission responsible for this department. I think we're skirting around a commission that oversees this by directly going to the selectmen.
This was the request from the planning, development, and zoning official, and he's been reviewing the policies and the practices with the land use administrative assistant and the IT manager, and that's why they brought this forward. As he said to me, it does not impact the way that the boards operate.
Okay, like I said, I'm just stating, usually things go through the chain of command, and I think that's how we've always done it. And I know Nate is new, and maybe he doesn't understand that there is a chain of command, and he does report to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So like I said, I spoke with the chair and I said I would bring that forward to you guys.
So are you saying that all decisions made by the planning officer goes through the P&Z and economic development? Every decision he makes on a daily basis, he has to go back to the board and get that input from the board and have the board discuss it and get back to him?
Not everything, but budgetary items and things with expenses, they sure do. Just like when we build a budget, he doesn't just go directly to you guys. It goes through planning and zoning or economic development commission. And if you read his job description, he reports to planning and zoning and economic development with daily basic supervision from the first selectman. So, you take it for what it is. The chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission would like to discuss this at their meeting before it gets approved. So it's not like this is a no from them, and I'm just relaying this, but they'd like to discuss it, and maybe then it comes back here, but they should have some say into it before it goes forward.
Thank you. Shooting me down on my first request. Perfect. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Well, it surprises me if this was a kind of a sticking point that the chair didn't join us on the meeting.
Yeah.
I
Any
have a
other
question.
questions?
I do. I know you always can't always see me up here. What budget does it come out of? Like, so whose budget would be impacted by it?
For the 3 years that we're asking for right now, it would be the rescue plan funds,
Right.
not funds department budget. And then it would be evaluated after the 3 years to see if it was an effective product. And then it would either come out of land uses budget, but most of the software actually comes out of the IT line. So I think that's B25.
Okay.
Mike? you're next.
My original question was just that I work cost proposal, but finally figured it out. You're talking about, we already have 3,000 in there and it's just another 2,500 bucks on top of that. Is there a timing matter on this that we wouldn't be able to allow the planning and zoning board look at this and talk about it? Bob?
Not that I know of. I don't see this as being time sensitive. It just came to us, to the Board of Selectmen at our last meeting. And I think there's always time to do things the right way. So if there is a need to go back to planning and zoning, and know they're meeting tomorrow night, they can probably add it to their budget. I don't know the next time EDC, or whether even EDC has to weigh in on this, but to do the process the correct way, I don't have an issue with that. They're going to meet tomorrow night. I'll be at that meeting if they want to add it to the agenda, bring it back to the Board of Selectmen after the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. We've already approved it. They can let us know that they have approved it if they do approve it as a board, and we can bring it back to the Board of Finance for an appropriation request. Do you see it as being time sensitive, Christine? No. Any other questions?
Can we approve it pending their board's approval?
Yes, we can. Yep. Yeah, I'd be more sensitive to this if it were their budget in particular. To me, as I read through this, it's kind of administration.
Mhm.
And
But if the chair, Dan, if the chair himself is said, and he maybe had a conflict, he couldn't be here, but if he's saying he would like to discuss it for us before it gets approved, I don't mind if it's not time sensitive, wait to get input from, in this case, Chairman Steinbrecher. So I know what you're saying, Mike, you could approve it, but why? I could just redraw my request at this point and come back in front of the Board of Finance at a later date once or planning and zoning has discussed it and comes back to the Board of Selectmen.
is that Dan Smith?
Is the $7,500 an actual quoted amount, or is it?
Yeah, it is a quoted amount.
It's a
2,500 for 3 years.
2,500 for 3 years? Okay. I know we had a member and Paul, last meeting, was pretty vocal about having any more appropriations for this fund to come forward, to have it as a package. This is how much we're going to spend the rest of it. I watched the selectmen's meeting the other night and they were talking about water and sewer. That hasn't, numbers were being thrown around. We, as a board, haven't seen anything come across our desk about water and sewer. Appropriating some money being put for this building has been talked about. And once everything got spent out, it was going to be about $19,000 left in the account. I think we need to have like this amount. I think we need to have a whole package. I agree with Paul. I think we need to have a whole package brought by the Board of Selectmen saying, this is how we're going to spend this money.
Can I address that, Dan?
Yeah.
All right, so we actually approved this the night before your last meeting. So it was before you had that discussion.
Yeah.
We as a board, myself, I asked Mike to kind of hit the brakes a little bit when it came to this. We are planning on a meeting with the 2 new board members Friday to discuss moving forward on both the 298 building and making a comprehensive plan for the remaining ARP funds. So I agree with you. We should be doing that. Because once we do that and we assign those funds, we know what we're doing with them, then we can, when people do ask us, and they will ask, there's money out there and people go, hey, whoever puts the best case forward will get the money. I mean, it's just like if you hit the lottery, every charity in the world will come out of the woodwork asking you for a donation. So basically what's happened is towns and cities have somewhat hit a lottery of funding, and now everybody's looking for them. I've heard 2 requests on a meeting I was on the other day. So this makes sense to have a comprehensive plan so we can say that money has been committed and we'd love to give money to you, but we don't have any left. We've committed it. So I agree with you. But in this case, this was before that meeting that you had.
Yep.
And it also, I think there's a difference between funds coming from outside of the town versus funds asked for from within the town. This is only going to help our own planning and zoning department. It's not like it's from a group from Groton or a group from, another city, Hartford, saying, hey, this is something we need money for. We're willing to donate to it. We've donated to funds outside the town already. This helps us inside North Stonington. Something we want to do is help ourselves in these cases. So I agree with you. And I think you'll see once the new board is seated that we'll plan a date when we'll have a larger community discussion on ARP and use in the 298 building. And I've asked First Selectman Urgo to just push back a little bit on that, hang on, let the new board come in and not try to rush this thing through. So that's where we are. I do understand your point on this, and I don't mind, since it's not time sensitive, to go back to the chair of planning and zoning.
Are there any awareable pressing needs that the Board of Selectmen have come across for ask for money?
Not that I know of. I mean, we're always getting asked. There's a couple of asks that are out there right now that I don't think we're seriously entertaining. I think we want to do is go to the town and ask the town, what do you want us to do with the money? And then, that should be our agenda, right? What's best for the town as determined by the town. So that's our plan as a new board. I'm speaking for them. I haven't met with them yet, but I assume that's our plan. But if getting back to just this tonight, I don't mind withdrawing this and going through what's considered the correct process in this case and coming back to you and asking for this down the road. I don't see where planning zoning is going to say they don't want to do this, but they have the right as a board to discuss it. So.
Dan, are you looking for a motion to table this, or?
I'm going to withdraw
no,
it.
if he's withdrawing, there's no need for a motion. And there's not.
And when planning and zoning meeting tomorrow, and I will be at that meeting, I can ask them to add it. They can discuss it tomorrow. And then, Christina, we meeting next Tuesday? So do you think the EDC needs to meet on this? No. Okay. So if that's the case, we could come back to you at your next meeting, probably for the same ask. And then hopefully by that time, if it's after the 16th of November, I can also give you a date and when we're going to have a conversation concerning the ARP funds and the balance, what's left of it.
Okay, so we're considering this agenda item withdrawn.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan, I just want to pile on a little bit with what Dan Smith said. I'm glad Bob's open to it. I do think it would be really helpful to understand what the larger strategy is around the funding categorically, right? Like what, Bob mentioned, like, what do you want to do to invest in upgrades internally in the town? What are people asking for externally? Like even understanding those categories would be really important, and we've already, including the 260,000-ish that's already been allocated. Like how would you categorize that as investment and sort of seeing that we're looking at a balanced investment across multiple areas, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think they're agreeing to that. Yeah. I also think that as these funds came to us, the guidelines were, not well-defined, and certainly not well-defined for our particular town. And I think as more people have become aware of the funds, okay, is this something that could help us? Could we apply for this? Could we bring this forward? And I think with proper discussion, we're going to know the fit. Relative to what a comprehensive format might be. I think it's going to be kind of categorical as opposed to software here, bricks and mortar there, whatever it might be. But do the best you can so we all have a better understanding and a better accounting as is paramount because these are federal funds of their use. Yeah.
I do want to just err on the side of caution that a lot of these asks for enhancements, like they're all with 3-year terms, the firefighter edition, the software. We're using the money for these 3 years, but at some point to continue these nice services, we're going to have to add additional debt, or we're going to be taking it out of the budget. So I think we as a board, or especially with services and service contracts, we have to be aware that we're going to be adding. 3 years is a short period of time, but also is a long period of time. We're going to be adding more and more. Firefighter was at that's a good size number. You're adding service contract after service contract after service contract. It all adds up. We as a board have sat here for over the last couple of years fighting over $250,000 to get the mill rate down. I think we just have to be very, very wary, and I think the board of selectmen have to be wary about getting involved in that type of spending going forward.
So I agree with you, Dan, and I think that if we take the funds that were spent, and it's easy for us to list what they were, and as Sarah said, maybe list what was in-town use versus external use. Also, maybe we list all the 3-year uses versus the one-time uses. So I'm thinking this is kind of like someone's giving you a car to drive for 3 years and you don't have to pay for it. But at the end of 3 years, you either have to turn it in or pay for it then. So we're getting money given to us by the state. And I know people say, well, it's not free money because we all pay taxes. We also know a lot of our taxes go to Bridgeport and Stamford and Hartford, and seems like very little comes back to our town of North Stonington. Here's a chance we get our money back to use in our town. So we have that luxury to use this money. And probably some of those dollars are coming obviously from outside of North Stonington, but we're getting to use them. So at the end of 3 years, we'll have decisions to make, but we can keep an accounting on how many. I don't know if there's 2 or 3. This one maybe, I think this makes 2. Is it this one? And per diem, do we have more 3-year?
It's 3 because of the communication software.
So how many of these give outs have we had? That's a 3-year. 3. Okay. But at least we can make a list since we all know what they are. Board of Finance can have a list and we can get an accounting on what they are. So we all understand what's coming due when. I agree with you. I think that the more transparency we have in this, the better. Yes. Right.
I just would like to thank Christine on this request, putting the total ARPA funds allocated to date, like we asked. I think that's very helpful. And then I do agree with both of you, whether we do it on our own, whether Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, we just keep a tally, because as Dan brought up, that 3-year thing, it'll be nice to keep track of. So as we look into the budget season. So, but I just want to thank Christine on this part.
Great. I've never enjoyed being shot down on something so much. It was great. Thank you.
It wasn't a shutting down. It was just more informational. Because honestly, planning and zoning did originally discuss this software when they bought into the software originally, the program we already have. So this is a portal for that. That was a discussion that they had as a commission. So thanks.
All right, long discussion and nothing happening as yet on that agenda item. So we'll move on to the next, which is a recurring agenda item on Board of Finance policies, the one we haven't completed yet, budget reconciliation. Sarah, do you have something for us tonight?
Yeah, I have a proposal. The policy is completely finished outside of the ad that was made a couple meetings ago about adding an audit. I went through and I reread everything, and I don't actually. It's budget reconciliation. It's budget management reconciliation. I don't reference audit anywhere in any of it. So I'm wondering if we want audit information specifically to be in that particular policy, or if that would be better as a separate document that provides guidance on audit, audit procedures. And it's just specifically focused on audit, in which case we could review the last version I sent and that would be complete.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, we're mandated by the state for a mandatory audit. So I mean, I was just thinking about it as I presented it, just as a link. So it doesn't necessarily have to be part of the text of this policy, in my opinion. So having said that, would you be satisfied in presenting your last iteration as the policy?
Yes. Yep. Do you want me to like live present it right now, or do you want me to resend it so everybody can look at it one more time? I'm happy to do either.
This is the one dated the 19th.
Um,
Sarah, is this the one dated the 19th? The email dated the
Yeah, it's
19th?
the email.
Yeah,
Just
so-
say it, iteration, but yeah.
Minus all the pages of notes behind it from the research, obviously, it would just be the.
I like the blue highlights, that helps.
I've made so many changes. I wanted people to know what actually changed since the last meeting. So,
I think relative to that presentation, and I know we held it up on the audit comment, whether or not that should be in, but I would be happy to present a motion approving the latest iteration for the Board of Finance policy on balanced budget and reconciliation. We have a second by Dan Smith. Any other discussion? Yeah, she hasn't put it in there. And as I said earlier, and we have a mandate from the state, which is pretty clear. So I don't think it's necessarily something that needs to be a part of this policy. Yeah.
I can't hear, just so I don't think the audience, nobody will catch it.
Whoever's in the room didn't have their mics on. I'm the only one with a mic on.
Yeah.
So we were just had a brief discussion about whether or not we should have auditing services or audit linked to this policy. So, and I'm satisfied that we have enough in place relative to mandating an annual policy of audit.
I'm good.
Okay. Carl, you have a question?
I haven't seen it, so I don't know. I'm probably gonna have to abstain again. Is that gonna goof you
Yeah,
up?
sure. All right, any other questions? Brett?
Yeah, I thanks, Sarah. I think it looks great. Wondering if there's any benefit to adding that sample timeline for budget process to this. So it's in our policy as
Like an addendum attachment kind of thing.
because I think that that timeline you did send out is a great timeline. Being a chair of a commission, this is doable to get everything in. And it does leave some room in there but it gives everyone the basis of what months we're doing what. So I think maybe adding this in as an addendum to that policy, then everything's right there. So if you're thinking about budget and how that works, you go to the policy and everything's there. Especially with so many new members on all boards in town, it could be helpful as they do research.
And it fits right in with the whole budget management theme. So I would agree with that.
All right. What I would do is just amend my motion to add the budget process timeline, I guess we'll call it, as an addendum. Okay, we're good, okay. Just add that.
Did, I'm just gonna ask one more time. Did math savvy people review the calculation section? And is everybody comfortable with the way I describe how we levy the tax and assign the mill rate? It's highlighted blue.
As I look at it, you present a very simple equation, but equations can really throw people depending upon their aptitude. But I thought it was plain enough.
Okay. It's a description and then I did both. So for the math people, there's the equation. For the non-math people, there's the description. Just make sure everybody's good with that. And if so, then that was the one I most was interested in getting validated.
We'll do this year after year, or have done it year after year. Math is a part of what we do.
Yes. You need both. Yeah. Okay.
Right, any other points of discussion? Right.
Sorry, just, I just want to point out the temporary tax rate. Are we all okay with, the mid-June is when we recommend? Is that?
Yeah, we
Pretty
actually had quite a lengthy discussion on that, if you remember, going back to that meeting.
Yeah, that was taken directly from my notes from when we had that conversation. When we went through it, because we had to do it.
Okay, I just want to reiterate that all the points in this are good.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. I would ask for your vote, if you can indicate by yay.
Yay.
Okay. And Sarah, you're in there. Okay, you're the.
Yay.
author.
Yay.
And we have an abstention. It's 501, and it passes. And Sarah, thank you for your good work.
So will this be uploaded now to our website?
Yes.
Under our categories? Great.
I'll clean it up. And Dan, I noticed, I think all the other policies were signed. Should we add a signature block with for signature?
Should be signed.
Say that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll do that. I'll add the signature block, remove the notes and send it off for signature.
She'll get a hard copy and I'll stop by and sign it.
Perfect. Thank you.
And take that off the agenda. Yay. Oh,
Hi.
It's okay.
Is there any outstanding policies that we have?
that was the last one. Yeah. Not that, new ones can't be forthcoming, but I think, we looked at, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 of them and decided to, okay. Yeah, these are the critical ones. Yeah. Good job, board. Good job. All right. Thank you again, Sarah. And we're on to previous minutes. The only one outstanding is our last meeting, dated October 25th. If you want to just take a minute to review those. Pretty short. I see a correction in Brett's name that we have to change the spelling.
Thank you.
Mastriosny.
Happened my whole life.
Sorry that I did that.
I'd like to say that I was thrown off by the Monday meeting. I had another meeting for Madonna Place and I was like, on Wednesday, I was prepared to have a meeting.
Yeah. Well,
Didn't
this
realize it
was-
already happened.
This was a special meeting. So we didn't have the quorum. The one before. Thankfully, I got your name correct as I continued through the minutes. But- All right, I move that we approve the minutes as amended for the Board of Finance special meeting dated October 25th, 2021.
Second.
Smith. All right, any further discussion? We can have a vote. No, you're an abstention.
Abstain.
Abstention. Okay. 402, it passes. That's Mike Anderson and Carl. All right, that takes care of that. On future strategies, do we have any reports from Board of Finance members? There are none. Annual report, now that we have the audit. I'll write a narrative, so I promise.
Okay. We've
Yes.
gotten one more since I sent out my reminder email. We are still missing quite a few, so I've gone to the individual departments in town hall and reminded them it's due Friday.
Okay. Including me. Got it.
I know it's coming.
We have new board members coming on. Carl, I mean, we're happy to have you join the board. We have a couple of others, and the board should be thinking about orientation. Amy, as an alternate. Hi, I'm Dan. Nice to meet you. I think it's the first time we've met, and very pleased that you'll be joining the board. Yeah. So you're going to have to decide who the chair will be, but there should be, in my opinion, some new board member orientation. Because before you know it, we step right into the budget process and your head's going to swirl. So,
Learn by fire.
But I've talked to the vice chair. He will take the meeting and then move to have a chair nominated and elected, as well as other offices. We will have to consider a secretary. Last few meetings, I've been doing the minutes, but somebody's going to have to do the minutes and be diligent about it. So, and a vice chair, of course.
Dan, I'd just like to mention that for the new members, do they have email addresses already or
Not yet.
not yet?
They won't until there's more.
Yeah.
So when-
Amy, you haven't gone through that process yet? Okay, good. You're going to see Antoinette? Okay.
There's a handbook, and so I'm gonna,
Great
Dan
idea.
Dan was nice enough to bring it in. I'm going to scan it and send it out as a PDF to you guys.
See Johnston, I looked it up.
Mike, I think maybe if that could be printed out. I know throughout the years, even before I was on the Board of Finance, when you refer to that, it is nice to have a hard copy. So
I'm fine with that.
I don't know if we can have them printed out for some members, because it is, I mean, that guides you through so much. And it's nice to be able to refer back to flip pages. I'm a little old school when it comes to that. I have it on my computer too, but I also like to be able to reference it on a hard copy. And I know it's a lot of pages, so some people don't have those printers at home.
It's 56 pages.
Okay.
Killing a lot of trees.
And Brad, probably just for the clarity of the board, in that you're going to be a selectman, that are you vacating your position as alternate to the Board of Finance?
I wasn't up for, so I didn't run again. So my spot was up.
Okay,
Actually, Amy will be taking the
Okay.
spot.
so everyone's clear as how the cards fell. Yeah, okay.
Do you need this then?
No, I have it on my. But thank you.
So this is my hard copy. I do not need a hard copy.
I'm gonna wait until the first meeting, ask how many hard copies, so I don't kill extra cheese for everything.
Thank you.
So when is the next, their first meeting?
2 weeks from. Yeah.
So our next meeting is our new meeting. It's with the new board. Right?
Okay, on to public comments. Do we have any more at this point? No,
Brad's
sorry,
comment.
I was looking that way.
Dan, I'd like to thank you for all your years. I know we don't always agree on things, and that's what makes a board discussion, great. It brings out the most, but I want to say thank you for all your dedication to the town. You know, there's many days when I see your car at town hall, knowing you're working for the board and the betterment of North Stonington. So I'd like to thank you for all your years of service, and wish you luck and less headaches at night.
I appreciate that, Brett, very much. Yeah. And I don't know if you've been in the room, but I was telling Carl, I said, there's always going to be points of contention. But I think people have to advocate for their opinion. And if they're doing that, in my opinion, you've got meat in the pan. In other words, it means something to you. And that, you know, coming to some consensus or even compromise is worthwhile. Yeah, for sure.
That's my, I want just, your service is very much appreciated. I think you've been a great steward for this town. You've taken it a long way. Just the undesignated fund alone, you know, is a great accomplishment. And I've learned a lot from you. And I hope that we can continue to be good stewards to this town and follow your lead.
I appreciate that, Mike, and I am very confident in the board as it will move forward. You know, I was going to, you know, close out by, you know, thanking all that have been on the board, both present and past, because they've all made in their participation a contribution to making our town a better town. And I think I would remind you that there has been an undercurrent, a strategy to what has happened over the last 10 years. And it's been one where we've never lost sight of the plan of conservation and development. We talk about debt management. We talk about building our reserves, building the strength of our balance sheet. We talk about being fiscally responsible every time we meet and make decisions for the betterment of the town, but also to have a view of the future. You can't get lockstep into just as what's happening today. You have to have a view of how it will impact the future, how we can make small investments to make our town even better. And, you know, North Stonington has gotten a lot of attention in the last few years in particular, based on investments that we have made for ourselves in our town. And we've made some big ones, you know, the projects that we've taken on are probably have been the biggest in the history of the town. But coming back to budgets and looking forward, you know, I like to use a metaphor, and there's probably a couple, but one that you might be able to relate to is taking a golf swing. By moving the face of the golf club, even by a 1/16 of an inch, you change the trajectory of that ball completely. And by making conscious small changes or add-ins that will have future impact is very important. So sometimes it's easy to kind of push that aside, oh, we'll get to it, or you always have to have that eye to the future. So with that, I would close again with great appreciation and call for adjournment.
But we haven't answered public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, you caught me. Go ahead, whoever that might be. Oh, Tula. You're being recognized, Tula.
Hi, Dan, I just wanted to chime in and say you are one of my favorite people, and I greatly appreciate everything you've done for the town. And I hope you do not disappear or run away.
No, you know, certainly I won't become a ghost. You know that you know, I'm always concerned about the town and what's happening in the town, and certainly the people in the town, of which there are so many great people. So I appreciate your kind words.
Did you skip public comments, Dan? You trying to like keep the people, all the people who want to say nice things about you from talking?
Oh, there's more? Any other hand? Oh, Sarah.
Yeah, well, no, I didn't actually know if we moved to public comments. You tried to adjourn before public comments. There could be more than me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to also say thank you. You know, I came in here completely green onto this board, and I am really grateful to all the folks who helped me learn, but especially Dan, to you. You're very patient and kind, and you always are very willing to impart your understanding of process, and you know, and you're a great teacher. So thank you for everything you've done. I hope that we can kind of do you proud going forward. And I think one of the most important things you've done in the past, I don't know how many years, I've heard like 10 years thrown around, but I think you've been involved in town service longer than 10 years, is that you've truly made a generational impact on the town. If you think about the work that's happened in the schools, like the schools are things that will impact our children, our children's children, or, you know, our grandkids. Like that's amazing. And thank you to all that you've contributed to that, because that is, you know, why many, not just the schools, but all of the work that we've done here is why this is such a great town to live in, and why we're all happy to be, you know, members of this town. So thank you for everything you've done.
Sarah, thanks so much. You know, I think that making the investment in our school district was probably the best thing that we could have done to impact our grand list, because our grand list is 90% residential properties. And where good schools are is where people want to be, and it enhances residential property values. So, and for those who have been with me for a while, everything that we do is linked. You know, to think that everything is separate is a mistake. So think of everything we do as being linked to something else that's happening within the community. That you shouldn't lose your global view of what's happening in town. Dan Smith?
I'll keep it short and sweet. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you for all you've done. Thank you for the guidance that you've given this board, and a lot of us, you know, personally on other boards, we share, we serve together on
Restructuring.
restructuring committee and everything. So, and you served on the school building committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate that. All right, are we ready for adjournment? Okay, Brett and Dan Smith, and we will call it at 8:25. Thank you, everybody. Good luck, Carl. Sarah, you're a rising star. I'm very pleased that you've ascended.
Thanks.